Today's repair is going to be a replacement of the NXG through frame RAM system. This would be a situation where the RAM needed to be replaced due to misuse, or it was in an accident, or you needed to replace the gear pack and inner RAM. This is going to show you the steps and processes to go through to remove that inner and outer channel together as one assembly and replace it. Your first step in this process is either get the room. I like to get it ran all the way out, but if that's not achievable, halfway will work. It's difficult to get the RAM system out from in between the frame rails with this room all the way in, or even sometimes at the halfway position. It may even require you to remove your outside skirting on that slide box, if it has it, to gain enough access to get the system out from in between the frame rails. But your first step, like I said, this room, I currently have it in the fully extended position. And now I have a jack and a 2x4 or 2x6 supporting the side I'm going to change. The other RAM on the other side, the slave side, or the non-drive or non-actuator driven side is still attached. Want to support the side we're changing. So jacking the 2x4, no need to jack up on the box. Just put a little bit of pressure there to make sure that room doesn't go anywhere on you when you detach it from the slide box. From here, we're going to go underneath and start disassembling the slide RAM. All right, now that we're underneath the slide box, it's supported with the jack and the 2x4, and I have it in the fully extended position. What I would normally do, this side is actually the actuator driven side of the slide out system. What I've already done for this scenario is I've already removed the actuator along with the actuator mounting bracket up underneath in between the main rails where the actuator mounts to the inner and outer RAM. I've got those brackets loose to where once we disconnect this, we can go ahead and just start sliding it out. We do have videos that show how to replace your actuator. Take a look at those if you are replacing the actuator side. Once again, if we're replacing a RAM, that could be for a couple different reasons. Maybe a gear pack, which is right in behind this plate. Usually you can finagle these out of there with a flathead screwdriver, and this is just kind of like a debris and dust cover. You can get those out of the way, which is going to show your gear pack in behind here. Kind of looks like a cogged wheel. Those teeth line up with the slots in the bottom of the RAM and drive that RAM in and out. If for some reason something became damaged or wedged in here and it damaged this area or the gear pack, we may just tell you, go ahead and we'll send you out a full replacement for that side, whether that be the slave side or the drive side. Let us know what side that you're actually needing in that replacement. Once we have the box supported, our first step is to come to the timing shaft that runs from one RAM to the other. This keeps everything in time. You're going to notice that there's a telescoping tube, two square tubes, one smaller than the other. There's going to be a bolt, or there'll be tech screws here. If it's bolts, they're 1/2 inch nut and a 1/2 inch bolt head. I'm going to simply remove those. You should have a flat washer on both sides. Slide that out completely, set it off to the side. Next, where the timing shaft hooks up to the gear pack, we're going to go ahead and remove the 1/2 inch bolt and the nut. Once again, you should have a flat washer on both sides as well. Slide those together so we don't lose them. Sometimes you can grab this and simply slide it off of the gear pack where it's mounted. Typically, a large pair of vice grips, not these small ones I'm using currently on this, clamp to that other tube, you're trying to get to telescope into the larger one, or vice versa from the other side. You want to make sure that you have any screws and bolts out. 2, large pair of vice grips or channel locks. You can use a flathead screwdriver in a manner on the back side here and try to work this off. The best thing I found is a large pair of vice grips clamped onto it and then start hitting it. And now it's come loose from that area. I did notice there was some shavings that came out of there, so that could have been holding us up. Now that the timing shaft is loose, now we can start taking the inner ram loose from our end condition on the other end here. To do that, you're going to need a 3/4 inch socket and potentially a hammer. We'll see how this comes apart. All right, on the end condition, you got 2 bolts. The end condition itself slides through the interior right here of the C channel on each side. It kind of interlocks. So I'm going to remove these 2 bolts and see if I can't drive this ram back off of the end condition head, leaving the end condition head hopefully attached to the slide out box if at all possible. 3/4 inch socket and impact should break the nut loose on the back side of those 2 bolts. You shouldn't need to break these loose with a pry bar first, but if you do, go ahead and do that. The nuts that you're looking at on the back side, they're serrated, so they bite into that metal. So typically, you can just go ahead and break these nuts loose off of the bolt, and they'll spin freely back off of there. Once you have that off, we'll have to get those bolts out of there, tap on them. They might fight you. You can go ahead and use your impact on the head if you need to. Get them out of there. Once those bolts are out, you're probably going to need a pry bar of some sort to achieve this. We're wanting to get this separated, the end condition from that inner ram. You should be able to slide this back off of there and back into the outer channel. You should be able to rotate that in there. If for some reason you can't, we may end up needing a pry bar. And it does not want to come loose. At which point, what you can do to make this a little bit easier is remove the 2 bolts. Also serrated nuts from the hat of the end condition to make this a little bit easier on you. At this point, you grab that ram and it should slide in. What you can do is you can get a 5/8 inch wrench or find something that'll fit in one of these holes on the gear pack and manually run this in. Later on, when we're trying to reattach this, once we have the new system in place, you'll end up having to manually rotate this out and line it back up with that end condition head to ensure timing is correct. And once we've got this fairly close, From this point, you should be able to go ahead and take a hammer on the back side of that end condition head, maybe the back side of the actuator bracket, if it has one. Slide it out like so. If you want, you can, as you try to reinsert all this stuff, if you want to add just a little lithium grease or something to that to help it a little, you're more than welcome to do that. It doesn't have to be all the way in. Get it close. You just want to leave room to pull this whole ram out and not hit that T-molding, or sorry, the skirt metal of your slide box. Once again, you may have to remove that if you cannot get the room in the fully extended position, or it's got a short travel distance on it, not allowing you to pull the mechanism or the ram out of the main rail. From here, we're going to go to the inside. Underneath, you'll have to gain access. If you have underbelly, you'll have to open that underbelly up or drop it in order to gain access to all the hardware inside that you're going to have to remove to disconnect this ram from the main rails. All right, with this system, how this frame is put together and how the rams are connected and secured in place, coming through the gear pack cage and the back of the ram. You'll notice this has grade 5 bolts and nylon lock nuts holding it in place. This one has already been taken out at one point or another, and we've replaced it with the grade 5 bolt, not grade 8, grade 5, and a nylon lock nut. You can use flat washers on both sides if need be. How it's typically secured is with our huck bolt fastener system, and that's going to be over here on the left. You'll see one of those. Typically, this is how it's secured. How these are installed at the factory, a gun will grab the end of this, the threads on the huck pin with the collar slid over the huck pin, and it will do a clamp load and then swedge the collar onto the threads. The only way to remove them is with one of the guns from Huck, which you guys probably won't have access to. In that case, if you have these Huck fasteners in place and you need to get them out of there, you have a couple options. 90-degree die grinder with a cutoff wheel. Get as close to the bottom of the collar as possible without getting into the frame rail, and cut up or off to the side or down from the top, doesn't matter, and cut through this about 3/4 of the way through that the huck bolt in that collar. Once you get about 3/4 of an inch of the way through there, you can take a hammer and hit this end of the pin. And once you do it, it should break off and snap off. If you continue cutting, it will pop and come loose on its own. You also have the option, if you have the ability and you have the tools, you can take a plasma and come in here and cut these off as well. Just note that if you're using a plasma, you could leave a little bit of slag and debris on that pin and make it more difficult for you to pop those pins out completely. So there's a couple of different options there to get these broke loose so you can replace the inner and outer ram. Once you've removed those at 4 corners, 2 on the right side, 2 on the left side, there's going to be an additional 5th bolt, huck bolt, and that's going to be at the back end of this ram. You're going to follow it all the way to the opposing frame rail, and it's going to be connected to a bracket that's secured to the main rail, dropped down and hucked in between the outer C channel of the ram. And it's going to be up inside here. Getting in there with that 90 with that cutoff wheel is going to be difficult. This is where a plasma or even potentially a torch, if you want to be careful using a torch, you could set fire to the underbelly or the underside of the floor. Make sure you got some kind of heat shield or something in there protecting that area. You want to get that cut off, Once this one's removed, this whole system, this whole ram is going to drop down, and it should catch on your return rail here. Be careful and mindful of that. You don't get it hit in the face with it when it drops down. So like I said, these have already been removed. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start here. We're going to remove this back bolt. Now, like I said, have your hand underneath there. See how it drops down there? You want to make sure it catches that lip or that return rail. Otherwise, you could get hit right in the face, and we don't want that. Notice the bracket up top that it mounts into. It has a slot in it. So for alignment purposes later on, when you're trying to reinstall the new one, you don't want to lock this in place until you get the front secured. You can get the bolt in there with a nut, grade 5. This one has the locking nut on it. You just tighten that up a little bit just to hold it in place. Get your other 4 fasteners in the front side on the opposing main rail. Once you've done that, you can tighten those up and then tighten this back one up last. So now we'll move to the opposing frame rail. We'll remove the other 4 bolts. Do the same to the other side. This one has a cross member and some underbelly right here. It's a little tighter spot. And there'll be one up top in there. Like I said, to start, you're going to probably have those hook pins and collars. You're going to have to get those cut loose. Once you do, and the back is released as well, this whole system should slide out of the main rails. At this point, you can start shoving out a little bit. Notice that the back is going to creep off of the return, so be mindful of that as well. These teeth are going to want to catch on the frame rail. You may have to push up on the outside and the inside together and walk them out. See how that drops down back there? If it's a flush floor and you got a pan out here, this top of the cage could be catching there, preventing you from getting the system out. So be sure to lift up on the back, inside. And work this system completely out. It's going to be snug. That hole is designed just for this size of this outer channel and that inner ram, so they could fight you a little bit. That outer channel has a bow to it, which takes up some of that space. Once you're sliding the inner and outer out of the main rail together, pay attention and be mindful of your skirt metal on the outside. You see how close I'm getting here. If need be, you may have to remove that skirt metal to get this slide system out completely. Once you've got that out, grab your new mech, insert it into the hole in the main rail, and keep working it back into the frame rail. You may have to wiggle it around a little bit in order for it to work its way in. Be mindful it doesn't catch your pan. Lift up on the interior. Once it's resting on the opposing return on the other side, it's about as far in as you can go for right now. From that point, you're going to want to get your grade 5 bolts. Get 4 of them. From the outside, line your holes up, shove your bolt in. Do that to top on both sides. Notice that these aren't full holes that are in the mounting bracket. They're like a half moon shape. Do that to all 4 corners. And then once you've done that to all 4 corners, go into the inside and put your nylon locking nut on the interior. Once you have all four in place, come to your back and drop your bolt into the top of the bracket. There should be enough room for you to get your hand up above it. Shove up on the back of the ram until it aligns with the hole in the back of the ram, the outer channel. Once that's in position, go ahead and put your nut on. But remember, I said don't tighten this one up yet until you have the other four bolts secured on the opposing frame rail. Then we can come back last, but not least, and tighten this back nut. Once you're back over here to the main rail that has the four bolts, tighten those up. Get all four tightened. Now that all four are nice and tight and secure, you can work your way back to that fifth lag or fastener. Should have room to get a wrench up above. Tighten that one up as well. Now we can go back to the outside and manually pull this inner ram out of the outer channel and get it hooked back up to our end condition. Remember, we took off the end condition, the lower. Let's go ahead and put that back in place. Tap this in place until you have two holes exposed. Should be at the back leading edge of those slots. You can go through with a paint marker and mark all of this prior to taking it apart to where you know where everything went once you took it off. That was those 2 3/4 inch bolts. They're like 1 1/4 inches long. The other hole is located in front of the actuator mount bracket. And you make sure you get that bolt lined up and in the end of the inner ram there. Outside of it, you're only going to have one bolt holding, and we don't want that. There's serrated nuts on the back side. Tighten them up. Once you have that in position, you may end up having to put a socket on the other side. From there, I should be able to manually run this out to a certain extent, if not all the way up against my head bracket that's still mounted to the bottom of the room. In this case, we got nice and fortunate. We're able to just get this lined right up into back into position. Now we take our carriage, short 1 inch carriage bolts, go on the front leading edge of the bracket. You may want to put a nut on that first bolt, that way it doesn't fall back out on you. Spin it hand tight. That's enough for now. And then you'll notice there's a height adjustment bolt. You're going to want to make sure you make marks on this as well prior to taking and disassembling. I need to lock that up in place where that height adjustment bolt is touching the bottom of the hat. From that point, I can tighten all this down. Once those are nice and tight and it's pulled those pieces back together, my other two bolts are tight going through the end condition. We can work our way back to the timing shaft. And you're going to notice I'm just a little off. That room must have moved on me just a hair during the repair. Once again, a screwdriver or a pair of vice grips Should be able to manipulate this enough to get this started again, going back up on there. Once it's back on there, we're going to take our channel locks or our vice grips again, clamp down on to that telescoping tube using our hammer. Beat that in place till the hole aligns for the bolt in the gear pack itself. If it doesn't align with this, we can always chase that if we need to. I'm gonna take one of my 1/2-inch bolts, remove one of my washers, leave another washer on there. Slide that through, tap it in if need be. Put my flat washer and my nylon locking nut on there. I'm not going to tighten that up because there is a little bit of play in there that I may need to get this other bolt in place. This is going to squeeze the 2 square channels of the timing shaft together. Ensuring that we have no slop or play in the system and both rams pull in at the same time with one another. Grab my 1/2-inch socket, 1/2-inch open end wrench or closed end, doesn't matter. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up on that center nut and bolt. If you're using an impact, don't over torque it too much and snap that bolt off. You can just get them nice and snug. Do the same here to this one in the gear pack. Go through, double check all your connection points. Make sure there was no issues. You didn't miss anything or any bolts. Once again, these are grade 5 bolts with nylon lock nuts to attach the ram system to the main rail and at the back bracket on the opposing frame rail. Once you've inspected everything, everything's locked down, everything's tight, you can go ahead and cycle your room at this point and ensure that everything's functioning like it should. If this was the actuator side, you do now, at this point, you need to go ahead and mount your actuator mounting bracket. Keep in mind, and we can show you on the inside here, the ram system, the inner ram needs to be out far enough to where you can get and gain access to the mounting holes in the outer channel. My bracket fit right in this area here, so I'm far enough past that point so I can gain access and throw a bolt through there, because I would have had to have cut hooks to remove this bracket from the actuator mounting bracket. At this point, I can throw my bracket up. If this was actually the actuator side, if not, you're done with your repair at that point. If this was the slave side, I would suggest, even though you can clearly see where the actuator bracket and the trunnion bracket were mounted, make marks. That's key to putting everything right back to where it was at. If this was the actuator driven side, at this point, you would tighten up this bracket, put your trunnion bracket in place. You'll see how I put everything together to where I didn't lose anything. I'm gonna mount this bracket right back into those slots, into those holes. Once this is all tightened down, I'll slide my actuator in, hook up the actuator, readjust the room. Once again, there's a video for actuator replacement showing you how to remove it, how to set it back in place, tighten it up properly, and adjust the room. Once you're done with that, you're finished with the repair.